Hey everyone, we're now live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Twitch. Good morning, good afternoon, or even good evening, depending on where you're all from. I hope you're all having a wonderful time. Let us know in the chat where you're from. My name is Kevin, and I'm the Technical Community Manager here at Postman, live from New York City. So if you hear sirens, it's not me, it's just New York. But today I have Garrett London, Technical Enablement Architect from Postman, and Bello, DevRel Engineer, also from Postman, here to talk to us about some Postman collection converters. Garrett, Debo, how are you guys doing today?
Doing well. Also live from New York City, so sirens apply for me as well.
Yeah, there we go.
Doing well. Also live from New York City, so sirens apply.
Yeah, it's doing well from here. Live from Nigeria.
Also live from New York City, so sirens.
Someone's got an echo. Which one of you is it? I think it might be Debo. Do you have the stream in the background? But looks like we've got some people from Vancouver. There's Ian from our team, Ian Douglas 736. He also streams. He challenged me 3 weeks ago with a blindfold challenge, and this is my second stream now, so I'm back. We've got some people from the UK and all that, but yeah, great to see you all. Cool. So I guess I have a pop quiz for us real quick. What is a collection in Postman? Do you have an answer for us, Garrett?
So the basic definition, right, is just organizing a group of requests, but I think Devo can expand on that a little bit further, right?
Yeah, that's the answer I would give. I think it's a way to organize a bunch of requests in like a little folder. But I know there's more to it than that. And I think Debo's got the answer. Can you hear us, Debo?
Yeah, it's really is just a way to organize requests and group requests together. It's a way to get developers to collaborate on an API request and
I think
work
you
together.
have the stream open in the background.
But it goes beyond that. It's a JSON format as well. Under the hood, what powers like the collection that people use in Postman, where people can easily collaborate and send requests. I think there's some echo from my end.
Yeah, is it playing through your speakers on your computer?
I think there's some echo.
See if you have like the stream open in another window.
I'm not sure. Let me fix that in a minute.
It's okay.
I do not.
We've got some answers in the chat as well. I can highlight these.
Is it better now?
We'll have to see. It seems like it's usually delayed. But we've got this response in the chat about grouping requests of a specific flow to repeat multiple times. That's what I do. I made a Slack bot that kind of relied on that feature.
Yeah.
But
So,
what were you saying now, Debo? It was a little hard to hear you.
yeah, but can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think the echo might be gone. Hopefully.
Yeah, sorry about that. But really, it's just you grouping a set of requests and collaborating on that request. But what powers that is the collection format. And collections, in its true nature, is an API contract. It's simply just like an open API, of if you've worked with API contract before, or like an async API. It's a JSON format, really. And it's a way to represent API requests across the entirety of the API lifecycle. So think of representing the request you make by clicking the run button on Postman. You could do that with a format. Think of documentation, think of mocking, think of testing, or really anything you do across the entire API lifecycle can be represented as a collection format. And that's just really just JSON that is both human and machine readable. And it's what powers almost literally everything we do on Postman. If you're trying to mock a request, it's under the hood powered by collection, which is essentially a format. If you're trying to write a documentation, if you're trying to do things with monitors, or really anything you're trying to do with an API is powered by the collection format.
Cool. So, from what I'm understanding, is that collection is code. It's JSON code specifically, and you can change that code. Postman's interpreting that into what we see in the Postman UI. And we can change that code or do things with that, which is probably why collection converters work. They can see that code. Am I right? I feel like I'm on to something.
Yeah, absolutely right. So since it's just JSON and it's a JSON representation of an API request, and collections are not the only way to represent API requests. So it makes sense to be able to take that JSON and convert it to other ways in which APIs could be represented, depending on your specific use case.
Okay, that's definitely more involved than the answer I had initially. So I guess I learned something new every day. Then I guess before we get into these collection converters themselves, I should do the in case you missed it. So in case you missed last stream, we had a how we built the gRPC support in Postman. Did you guys know we had gRPC support? Supposed to say no.
No, of course
Tell us
not.
about it.
We have gRPC support. We support 6 different protocols. I'm not gonna quiz everyone on what those are, but there's 6 of them. And in fact, we had an update just this week, I think yesterday even, that adds now the ability to test your gRPC requests using a scripts tab, which wasn't there before. So if you're familiar with the pre-requests and the tests tab in regular, say, REST requests, now you can do that. And we have also snippets, which will auto-generate code, so you don't have to remember everything. It makes it a little quicker. And that's great. So on top of that, we also have, I have to switch my screen. Not 1, not 2 or 3, but 4 new blog posts that have come out in the last week. You can find them here at blog.postman.com. I'll put these in the chat. So this is about that feature I was just talking about, where you can test gRPC APIs within Postman. Definitely give this a read, and you'll learn about some of these new changes that have come out. We also have shifting left with Postman. There is introducing governance for publishing collection documentation, and also creating effective feedback loops for better API governance. So you can find all of these posts that have come out in the last few days, actually, believe it or not, on, again, blog.postman.com. a lot of great stuff here. So if you're looking to learn more, stop by there. Looks like we lost Davo, but I think we can get going. Cool. So would you like to share your screen? Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. That's the UI I was trying to share. Would you like to share your screen though, Garrett?
Sure. I'll take it over.
And then in the meantime, we'll be scooching the chat off to the side so we can still see your messages. Totally let us know in the chat if you have any questions or anything like that. And I could share them.
All right, everybody. So now we're in the Postman UI, right? It looks very familiar. So we're going to go over the 3 different types of collection converters that we have. The first one is going to be generating mark collection. The next one is going to be generating an OpenAPI specification. And the last one is going to be generating a Jmeter JMX script that you can then import into Jmeter and run. So very exciting stuff, and I'll kick it off right now.
Do we have a place where we can fork these?
Yes. So
people would love to.
If we go to the Postman public workspace, you could also type it on the search bar.
And drop a link in chat for everybody as well.
It's going to be the first one on the search. You'll see we have a bunch of collections, and down here we have the collection converters. You can create a fork of that to your own workspace. And the cool thing is you can watch the original collections. You can get notified about when it changes. As things get updated, improved, you can then merge it back into your fork. So,
love email notifications. I don't know about you guys, but
cool. So there's some commonalities with all 3 of these collection converters.
Mm-hmm.
They're all going to use 2 variables, right? They're going to use an API key, which I have set as my global variable as a secret variable. And they're going to use a path parameter called collection ID, which is just the ID of the collection from Postman, right? So they're also all going to use the Postman API. So if you weren't aware, Postman exposes an API so that you can access all your resources and manage them automatically, or do whatever you want with your own resources, collections, all of its schemas, etc.
So I can access Postman from within Postman.
Correct. You can't be you can't not have an API if you're the API platform of the future, right?
What kind of things can we access with that API? It looks like we can get collections with a collection ID.
Correct. We can get collections, environments, schemas, all sorts of things. And I believe the API is that all. Yeah. So the Postman API is actually on the Postman public workspace. So
That's
if
awesome.
you look, we can access users, mocks, monitors, workspaces. We're still building on this, but it's very, very comprehensive. So the sky is the limit on what you can automate with it, or how you can improve productivity in your teams, even beyond using Postman, which is already such a productivity hack. So that's again in the Postman public workspace.
Cool. So that's probably how we're gonna actually get our collection, the JSON of that, right?
Yes. So as we can see below, I've sent this request to the Postman API, right? This will do is it will return a JSON object for a collection, right? So if I look at this collection, what does it contain? And this goes back to what Debo was talking about, of the actual structure and foundation of a collection. What is a collection, right? The collection will have your metadata, have your information. It'll have all of your items, which are basically requests. You can see there's a GET request with a specific header. There's a URL with
This is to a calculator because I can
Correct.
see there's a name multiply. So there's probably a request name multiply. There's one name add, and I can see the method type is get with the headers, the URL. So it looks like we
Yes.
can see all of that information in here. And that's of all
Yes.
of the requests in that collection.
Yes. So that's an individual item in the array of items, which is all the
Okay.
individual requests.
That's cool.
Another cool thing is the event property, which contains an array of all your pre-request and test scripts. So
Oh, so you
that
can
even
view
returns,
that code that you put in there.
exactly.
That's awesome.
And then you also have your variables, right?
Right. So it really is just a combination of everything that's in a request, or everything in a collection, including its requests, and everything within those requests in just JSON.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. That's really useful.
Cool. So I'm going to go into how we actually accomplish converting this collection to, for example, Markdown syntax. That happens in the test tab. Okay. So what the test tab does, right? The first request that we send is going to be to the Postman API. We receive a
collection ID.
we receive a response with the JSON of the collection, and we can actually stringify that collection into another raw body. And if we look at the next part of the request, what we're actually doing is we're sending another request. And this is actually a Lambda function that we've hosted in our Postman Solutions domain, which uses an NPM package, which I will show in 1 second, to convert this collection to Markdown. And the response of that request is going to be the Markdown of the collection. Now, we're also using the Postman visualizer, this visualize tab on the bottom here, to be able to display the response of that secondary request. So again, we're sending a body to our Lambda function, which is using a Node NPM package, JavaScript package, that takes in a collection JSON object, and it will spit out a Markdown syntax document. Okay.
So we're sending a Postman request to the Postman API with a collection ID to get a collection, which is
Correct.
giving us the JSON collection format, which is in JSON of that collection, turning
Correct.
that into a string with stringify, and sending that over another request within a request to a npm package hosted online that converts that into Markdown.
Yeah, so that's a Lambda function that we've created that
Awesome.
contains a NPM package that I am about to share right now. I'm sharing the GitHub link to this Postman to Markdown package, which is open sourced, and it was created by the community. So thank you all the contributors who've contributed to this. But the basically what you would have to do is you'd have to npm install the package locally on your machine. You have to export the collection to JSON format JSON file, and then you would have to actually run the command locally in order to generate that Markdown document. So what we've done is kind of extracted that code out to a Lambda function so that you can just call it within Postman UI. And if I go to the Visualizer tab, you can see I've got my Markdown syntax here. And I can go to Chrome and go to Markdown Live Preview. And you can see here, I got my project calculator. I've got my endpoint add with the get method calculator. And all of my methods auto-generated from my collection JSON document.
That looks really useful.
Yeah.
I imagine for things like documentation, it'd be good. It also reminds me a lot of the Postman UI, where there's the documentation for a collection, and you can see almost like this same UI.
Yep, exactly. You can put Markdown documents in GitHub READMEs or whatnot. So anything you use Markdown syntax for, this is a pretty cool collection converter, and it really starts to highlight the ability to turn that collection JSON that you receive from the Postman API into pretty much whatever you want, right? So if you have a specific use case for your business, this is something that that you can utilize.
It's great.
I think the Markdown is more like uh, it's more like a screen reader for collections. So it just kind of
Yeah,
takes the collection and makes it more readable for you.
definitely. And I imagine like it's good for embedding on your own websites and things like that.
Mhm.
Definitely.
And
Well,
then
great.
hosting that Lambda collection just makes it so that we don't have to download the npm package ourselves and do those all those extra steps. We can just send it as a web request.
Yeah, and that's the awesome thing about the visualizer is because you can use that event handler after the pm.send request, and you can take that response
Right.
and you can then visualize the response.text, right?
That's great. Okay.
So sending a request within a request on the test tab,
Yeah.
super cool, many different use cases. Um,
A lot of
and yeah,
inception using Postman to get to
yes.
the Postman API to send a request within a request.
And feel free to shoot any questions in the chat if we can clarify anything further. Yeah.
So how would we make, say, like that npm package ourselves? Because that seems like that's just parsing through the JSON format of the collection,
Correct.
finding what it
So
needs and just translating it, right?
exactly. So basically, you have the metadata for your collection, right? So you know the name, you know the metadata beyond that, and the array of items is actually going to be each request. So you can, all you have to do is really define a converter for an individual request item and loop through every request in the items array. Next, if you want to utilize pre-request scripts and tests in your collection converter, then that's done in the event array. And then using variables as well, you can convert any variable to, let's say, a host name or whatever you need it for. So it's really just a simple. I highly recommend you look through the source code on GitHub. I think the link got put in the chat, but it's a really simple converter where it's just taking JSON attributes, properties, and converting them into a desired format. So pretty simple
Doesn't sound
concept,
too
but
difficult.
as you can see, very wide array of use cases and very significant tooling that you can produce.
What else can we do with this collection format? Because I imagine there's more than just Markdown. I can see we've got OpenAPI,
Yes,
we've
we
got
do.
Jmeter.
Great. So I will. I'm going to hand it to Debo, and we'll go through the Postman OpenAPI document. And just a quick note, all the documentation for running these collections, once you fork it from the Postman public workspace, is going to be in the documentation tab of the collection. So if you forget how to run the collection, just look on the right-hand side, and you'll be good to go. So, Debo, take it away.
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that the collection is just a JSON format, as you can see, and Garrett has done an amazing job on taking us through the format and what it provides, and how it is able to represent a collection in JSON. But we could also easily see that the, the collection converter from Markdown could take like this entire format and convert it to Markdown. But we could not just only do that for Markdown. We could do that for other things. And the Open API is a great example of the other things you could convert collections to. So the
Right.
Open API is also a way to represent API requests. It's a specification for API requests. It's human and machine readable. Um, you could write an Open API specification or an Open API document for your APIs to define what type of request you want to make, what type of response are you expecting from this request, and just all of those things around an API. Now, what this converter does is it takes the collection that is in JSON format and converts it into an open API document, an open API definition that you could then take and use it for all of the other interesting things you want to do. So if you have experience working with API schemas, you know that these API schemas in its raw form, you could read the API schemas and have an understanding of what it does. But the API schema in its raw form is not extremely that useful. What makes it useful are the toolings that are built around it. And the Open API is very popular. You could use it to do a lot of interesting things. I think later in this call we'll speak about how you could take like the Open API definition and use it in like API builder. But really, what the converter does is it takes your collection, it converts it to an Open API definition, and you can then take that Open API definition and use it to do other interesting.
It sounds like you can do a lot with that. I mean, just being able to represent your collection in the Open API format, that's a lot.
Mhm.
Um, what do you think is like one of the most common things that people would want to do with that?
Well, I think one of the really common things that people would want to do would be to use it in the API builder of Postman. Because then in the API builder tab, you can provide a definition for your API, not just in Open API, you could do it in GraphQL, you could do it in a single API. And providing an API definition for your API, it also comes with like a lot of other interesting things. It means you could automatically generate collection, you could automatically generate documentation. You could automatically create a mock server. You can also do things like versioning your API or do version control on your API and integrate it with Git. You could deploy an API gateway. There's just very few, like there's no limits to what you could do. And if you are I mean, we've been advocating for the API first approach. So let's say you don't do API first before, and you have like a set of collections that you have on Postman, and now you want to take API first seriously, and you want to use the design first approach. You could take your collections and convert it to an open API definition, and then take this open API definition and take it to the API builder, where you could collaborate on the API definition and you could do all of this governance stuff on it where you could write LinkedIn rules for like specification and really just start like your API first approach from there.
That's great. So, if I'm understanding properly, I know that we can generate a collection from an API within the APIs tab of Postman. This gives us a way to, in a way, generate an API from a collection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could show that quickly. So it's the same exact concept as Markdown, right? We have a separate Lambda function that will actually convert to OpenAPI specification, right? So if I head over to the Visualizer tab, you can see that this collection was now converted to an OpenAPI document. And this is really, really cool if, let's say, you haven't started taking advantage of the APIs tab, but you've created all these collections, right, for all your APIs, and it seems like a hassle, right, to have to create the definition in your API builder tab. But with this collection converter, you can actually just plug in your collection ID and it spits out the OpenAPI specification. So you can just copy and import this into a new API, and then all those advantages that Debo was talking about, generating mock servers, documentation, monitors, tests, everything when it comes to the API builder and being API first, design first, can be accomplished with this collection converter.
Let's give it a shot then. That'd be cool because we're pretty much gonna recreate your calculator collection then that way.
Do that. This is blind, so we'll give it a shot. So I'm going to create the 1.0 OpenAPI Spec. Cool. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to go to the version and the definition. See that it already creates a definition for me. And boom, I copied the specification that we received from the response. And as you can see, all my paths are here, my server's here. I got the correct tags, correct syntax, and like those benefits that we were talking about earlier, creating that documentation, right? Let's do calculator documentation. Create. And Postman's, giving me the example. I use C#, so it's giving me the res sharp syntax to be able to call that API for each request. And it's giving me documentation for every single request in the collection, which I can then change and share with my team, right? So that's just the documentation part, right? We can also monitor. We can write
Cool.
test suites and connect them to CI/CD builds with Newman. We can generate collections from the specification. Move this over. We can generate collections for mock servers. So if you have a front-end development team and a back-end development team, those producers and consumers can collaborate on the development efforts without having dependencies, right? Because your front-end team can use a mock server to generate their UI components or whatnot, and your back-end team can develop their features, as needed without having to be rushed by, Jira ticket dependencies or whatnot. So big benefit using mock servers. And then you have the monitors, right? So if you want to do uptime or just run collections frequently and on a schedule, super helpful there. And then obviously the test suites that we all know and love in Postman as well.
That's great. This is really helpful. I see even in chat already, someone is finding this useful to them, that they could convert this collection into an OpenAPI YAML or YAML, and do everything that they need to.
And a few more notable highlights, because I'd be upset if I didn't mention them. Obviously, the server-side code generation, right? I think we're adding more languages to this as I speak, but server-side code generation is awesome. The change log, and my favorite is the commenting when you switch from build mode to comments. So this is when we talk about API first and collaborating on the specification, right? I can add comments and collaborate with any different stakeholder within the business or on the development team, and I can use Markdown, use at symbols to mention people. So the collaboration is really, really important when it comes to the specification, because ultimately that's the blueprint for the API that you're going to release.
Sounds really helpful. I imagine we're going to see a lot more forks on that collection now.
Yes, I can imagine. So Postman Public Workspace, if you forgot, the link is in the chat.
Yep, you can drop a link again as well.
I think one other thing that I find really cool is the versioning part of it, where you could have it in development, you could set it to production, and you could create multiple versions of this different versions of this specific API definition that you're working on. And you could have those different versions in different stages. So you can have one in production, you can have one in staging, you can have one in test, which is very, very cool.
And with, yes, that's a good note. Because also, you know, you have so many people in your organization and they're reading your API documents. It's great to know which version is in which stage.
2, 3, 4, 8.
That's great. I only know a little bit about versioning, but I can see how that'd be helpful when you have a lot of people working together. And then,
Yeah.
so I noticed we also have Jmeter. What's that one
Yes,
about?
we
I've
do.
never heard of Jmeter before.
I will go into that, but I also would be upset if I didn't mention my favorite feature, the Postman Beautify, in JSON request responses and OpenAPI definition. So, shout out to the
Beautiful.
Beautify, that helps me all the time. So yeah, there's a good example. We have the calculator documentation there. I'm gonna delete it just to save some space. Great. So my favorite is JMeter, the JMeter converter. Okay, and we saved the best for last, obviously. So as you can see, this is the same premise, right? Use the Postman API, get that collection response, and convert it to a specific format, right? Now, I don't know if everybody's worked in JMeter here, but creating new requests, setting default headers, adding user-defined variables, right? Those are all pretty tedious, especially if they change request by request and you have hundreds and hundreds of endpoints, okay? So we have the Postman to JMeter collection, which will actually take your collection JSON and it will return a JMeter syntax. So drum roll, if we go to the test tab, this is pretty cool because the logic is not hidden behind a Lambda function like the other two. The logic is actually all inside of the test tab. So let's say you want to customize this. For example, this current, and I'm assuming some JMeter knowledge, so my apologies, but this current structure and format will, for example, create one thread group, which is a organization of requests. It'll create one thread group with a number of requests below that, inside that thread group, right? But let's say you wanted a couple requests per thread group, you could also change that, you know, within the script. So I highly recommend taking a look at the Postman and JMeter test tab. This is going to contain all the logic to generate this very nice JMeter test plan.
Sounds like JMeter is great for performance testing as well, right?
Yes, JMeter is the standard right now for performance testing REST endpoints, and I'm sure it'll, you know, I'm sure everybody who uses Postman and uses JMeter is going to really love this. So
Yeah, this sounds helpful.
I'll show you all if I can. Let's see. So what I've done is I've actually imported this JMeter test plan into my text edit with a JMX extension, right? And so what I'm going to do is actually open JMeter, and I'm going to open this. Oh, that's a template. Sorry. I'm going to open this file within JMeter. And if you can see, we have the calculator. Remember, all of these, you know, let's say you wanted to set the number of threads as user-defined variable, customizable in the test tab. If you want to set the loop count to infinite, customizable in the test tab, right? And if I drop down on the calculator thread group, this is what I was talking about with the one thread group with all the requests. We can see all of our add, multiply, divide, subtract. Now, what's cool about the converter also? The converter will actually convert your JMeter or your Postman variables. So this base URL is actually a Postman variable, which was converted to a user-defined variable section in JMeter. Now, if I drop to multiply, you'll see that the HTTP header manager is also set. So this is a Postman header that was converted from Postman to JMeter. So it's not only requests, right? It's headers, it's variables.
It's your entire collection just represented in JMeter.
The right, the path is going to be correct. Your protocol, your request HTTP action is going to be correct. So yeah, so that's pretty much the entire JMeter. So this is not actually a real API; it's a fake calculator API. So I'm not actually able to send these requests, but it's still a good example of how you can generate it. And I'm going to not save that, close that down. Cool thing about this is, again, so easily customizable. So like if you want to do anything in JMeter, you just export this syntax, change it up, move it into your forked version of the collection, and you got yourself a functional JMeter script that you can use. So
That's
I
great.
think
It looks like we have a question in chat as well.
Sure.
Can the converter also add listeners and data configuration?
So the JMeter test plan, the JMX file is really just a XML document, right? So all of those config items or config elements, what they're called in JMeter, are going to be XML attributes in this document. So what I like to do actually is I like to create a JMeter script and then view the XML to see what was outputted, and then I can append it to wherever I need to append it in to be able to automate that. So I would say yes, but that's what we're also looking for. People from the community to play around with this. Everybody has unique use cases. Everybody does unique things with JMeter. Obviously, there's 100 different types of config elements and listeners and and all that stuff. So we're excited to see what people do with these collection converters, and we're excited to hear about the problems you solve. So
that probably makes it a little easier than copy and pasting all the time.
Definitely. Any other questions? Specifically Postman and JMeter?
Yeah. Doesn't look like anything at the moment.
Cool. And this is a good example also of the visualize tab. So I think we use a JavaScript package to be able to format and color code this this output pretty nicely. So great example of the visualizer.
Yeah, it looks like it's just creating HTML at the top, right? In the style sheet and all of that, and then it's just displaying like the XML.
Exactly.
And that's all the conversion is taking place in that tests tab. There's no like Lambda or anything like that.
Exactly, and you can even see the start of the test plan right here, coordinating with right here, Postman collection import. Postman collection import is right here. So
right.
Definitely take a look at it if you like JMeter, and community can help each other with this. So it's great.
And we have a question about can we use this feature in the latest version of Postman, or will it be in future releases? You can use this right now, actually. I have a link that I can post again to the Postman workspace where these 3 collections are. You can fork them there.
Yeah, so none of this. Sorry, Diba, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say this is just really a collection. It's nothing more than just a collection that you've always worked with. The only thing that is happening here is we are taking advantage of the test tab on the request. So the test tab allows you to write raw JavaScript and interact with like the response that is gotten from your API request. And you could write raw JavaScript and use it to do things like make another API request. And the code written in the test tab is only run when your request gets the response. So we're only taking the response from the request and doing stuff with it in JavaScript. So it's literally just a collection. It's not exactly a new feature. It's just we using Postman collections creatively to do more interesting things that people find.
Exactly. And I actually sometimes call the test tab kind of like the post request script, if you think about it like the
Exactly.
request script, because the test tab is, although it, you test and whatnot, the possibilities of executing either JavaScript or whatnot after the request is finished goes way beyond testing your JSON response. So think about it more as a post request. What should I do after this request to improve productivity or create something from send a request within a request and then create something from that response JSON. So that's how I like to think about it. And like Devo said, these are just collections. There's no features involved. There's no Postman. Nothing is getting released. These are just collections that take advantage of some of the features of the existing features of Postman even deeper than people may use them currently, right?
And
So you could use
I
this
think,
right now.
yeah. So I think the interesting thing about the test tab is it's originally written for you to write tests for your API response. So if you're making a request to some endpoints and you get a response, the same way you could do unit testing with things like Jest or Mocha and Chai. Is the same way in which you could write tests for your response, API response in the test tab. So I think it's built around Mocha and Chai. So it has like a similar syntax to Mocha and Chai. If you've worked with Mocha and Chai before, you should find it very easy to be able to work with like the writing like tests in the test tab. So because it's plainly just JavaScript, it means you can not only write like Postman test scripts there, you could also write raw JavaScript, which is like the feature we are taking advantage of to kind of like build up.
That's great.
Definitely. Cool.
Cool.
Well,
Was there anything else we wanted to share with the audience today?
So one little tip that I would suggest for collection converters is also including a pre-request script. So for example, if you're creating a collection converter and there's some either required properties or you have to set an environment or you need an API key, for example, checking those on the pre-request scripts is going to be very, very helpful to the person who's using your collection converter, just because you can output and say, please select an environment for this request if all the variables aren't filled in. Or you can say, please go to the collection variables and fill out the variables so that so that the request is able to run correctly. So otherwise, they may get a random 403 or they may get a random error and not be able to troubleshoot it as well. And then obviously important collection documentation is a big thing on the side, right? That's very important to get that there. The other thing that I like about Postman when it comes to authorization is if we look at the authorization for the Markdown syntax, we can see that the API key is being used in the headers. Okay.
Right.
Now, there's another way to do this, which some people may not know, so I'll go over it. And it's actually at the it's in the authorization tab, right? So just like you can use a bearer token, a JWT, or you can use OAuth, you can use an API key authentication and specify the key and the value, and then you can either add it to the header or the query params. So for APIs that you need a header authorization, you can specify header, it'll automatically add it to the header. For APIs that require a API key in the query parameter, you can specify query parameter and it takes care of it automatically. So just in case, there's two ways to do the authorization. You don't always have to do it manually. So this is super cool. And definitely make sure that you take advantage of global variables and environment variables so that you can keep those API keys secret, because that will give everybody access to your Postman resources. So that's also very important.
You definitely don't want to do that, especially in a public collection where everyone would see all of your stuff. Usually, if you share it in an environment variable like that with a secret type, people can't see the key. But if you store it under current value instead of initial, it's only local to your current session. But thanks for that demonstration. That seemed like, I mean, I learned a lot. Seems like chat learned a lot as well. Um, I guess now it's time for my favorite part as community managers, the community shoutouts. So in the uh, next week's stream, we're looking to possibly talk about some GraphQL changes in Postman. We don't have any links yet, but stay tuned through Twitter, where we usually share that stuff, but also the Postman Learning Center, which I can share my screen this time. And you can see all of our current events. So you can see we have a space camp on API contract testing coming up in just about a week now. This is something you definitely don't want to miss. You can sign up for free here and attend online. There's also a couple of events that we'll be speaking at. This stream was up on here. And then also, I'd like to give a shout out to I don't have that tab open, but the Postman Supernova program, which I am the community manager of. So if you're interested in teaching people about Postman, if you like giving presentations, if you like creating content around Postman, this is the program. We've got around 30 people all around the world. It's a very diverse group. You can apply right through the website on here, and I'll get to interview you. It's pretty fun. Do you guys have any shout outs of your own?
I would say shout out to the solutions engineering team, everybody who's contributed to these collection converters. Very, very helpful. I know the community appreciates it, and I know that they'll, be inspired to create their own collection converters.
What about
That's
you,
it.
Deva? You have anything?
Well, I'll say shout out to you guys for doing this.
Thanks for helping out, everyone. Where can we find you on social media? You can see here I'm DevRel Kev, but what about you guys? You on Twitter? You on LinkedIn?
I'm on the link. We'll send it in the chat. I'll send it to you, Ken.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Twitter. I'd definitely have to spell that out. I sent that in the chat.
I'm posting Garrett's link in chat.
Bennett had a really, really great question. There's no way to keep the request from happening by failing the execution in the pre-request scripts, is there? I will actually need to look into that unless anybody knows the answer. It's a really great question. So we'll make sure we get the answer to that.
So if you mean by preventing the request from happening,
yeah, so like what I was talking about with all the variables not being set, or having those preventative measures in place to prevent the request from actually even being sent and stopping the execution.
So I think one thing that could be done, you can't stop the execution, but you can skip the execution of certain requests. I can't remember what it's called, but there's this thing where you do pm.setNext request in Postman, where if you can write like some logic in the pre-request script, and if the logic is met, you can choose which request is run next. So if you have like a set of requests and probably you're running it in something like a monitor, you could use that to sort of like skip some certain requests and just choose what specific request you want to run based on like the logic you write. But actually making the request fail, I'm not sure if that's I'm not sure how you go about that or if it's possible now, but to me that really good to know.
Cool. Okay. Um, and yeah, I mean, if anyone has any questions, reach out to us on LinkedIn or Twitter. Someone's always reading the DMs, so we can help you out there. Or if you want to view this stream later, it's going to be a video on YouTube, so you can leave comments and stuff like that there too. And yeah, sign up for our space camp. It's going to be really great. It's being hosted by Ian as well. But that's it for today then. Thanks everyone for watching, and thanks Garrett and Debo for helping out.
I also did just send the Postman Sandbox API reference link to Kevin. Can you put that in the chat, Kevin? This is the JavaScript reference for scripting workflows, all of that stuff. So it's a great resource.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll see you next week.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.